Hey everyone. I'm glad some of you could make it. I know it was a last minute decision to do this, but I'm sitting home this morning having my coffee, and the buses are picking up kids for the first day of back to school, and I can't help but think about Corey, and he would he'd be going into sixth grade, and I just can't help but think about back to school shopping, what backpack, what shoes, just different things that we would have done, for the school year. And, it's just hard. It's a hard time of year. And a lot of people might not understand that, but if you've lost a child or a grandchild, this time of year, as well as, holidays are just so hard. And, it just brings up a lot of grief and anger. Um, you know, I sit here and I hope that Gregor is suffering in prison, um, because ultimately he's the reason Corey's not here. I know there's a lot of other people to blame, the agencies in place to protect children that didn't protect Corey, but ultimately, Gregor is the person responsible for ending Corey's life. And, for those of us still here, it's torture, it's hell. You can't go through one day without wondering, you know, what Corey would be doing. I even think about yesterday, I was on the phone with someone who was, she has grandchildren, and she was running around crazy exchanging sneakers because she got the wrong ones. And, I can't help but think I would love to have that, happening right now. I would love to be running around crazy finding the right shoes for Corey, and, the right outfit for the first day and the right backpack. We miss all that. We miss, packing his lunch and putting little notes in there for him to read later in the day. And, you miss waiting for the bus to pick him up, and waving to the bus as it goes down the road. And, these are just things that, maybe you don't think about if you haven't lost a child or a grandchild. These are hard times. They're hell, just like all the holidays and birthdays that we don't get. It's torture. It's just torture. And for me, it doesn't seem to get any easier. It feels like it's just getting harder. I feel like I'm getting more angry as time goes by. I don't know when it ends. I don't know. Maybe I just need to find a hobby. I don't know. I don't know when it gets better. And with everybody putting their pictures, first day of school for their kids and grandkids, it's so hard to look at. Like, I'm happy, it makes me smile, but then I think I should be posting those pictures. Brianna should be posting those pictures of Corey, and he's not here. There won't be any more pictures of Corey. We don't have any more school pictures past first grade. And that's tough. It's really hard to deal with. And, all I do is sit and pray that Gregor is suffering, that his family is suffering, because we are. And I feel like they deserve to suffer a little bit too. You know, um, it's just, this is not, it's not fun. It's not enjoyable. You try to move on. When there's no holiday and no special occasions coming up, it's almost like, okay, I can breathe this week because nothing's happening. But then, as summer is ending and all the school stuff is out in the stores, the notebooks, the pens, pencils, backpacks, you can't help but, thinking about we should be shopping for Corey, you know, the excitement, that he would have coming in with his new backpack. Look, Gma, look what I got. Or his shoes. We thoroughly enjoyed buying his clothes and making sure he had shoes to match and getting his hair cut. We miss all of this. Corey should be going into sixth grade with his friends. He should be experiencing life. I can't help but wonder what he would look like today and what size shoe would he wear today. And, all of these things that some people may think don't matter, but they do, and you can't do it anymore. And, I know Bree made a post on Facebook about Corey should have been, going to his first day of school today. And I know it's hard for her. She's trying to, get on with life. I mean, never forgetting Corey, of course, but, just trying to have some kind of normal life. But you can't, because these things come up, the first day of school, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. I mean, those are all torturous times for us and for anybody who's lost a child or a grandchild. So hard to look at everyone else's pictures because we don't have them. It's hard to, it's just hard. It's just hard to look at everybody, sharing these happy times when they're just hell for us. I know we're not the only ones going through this. I know others have lost children, due to an illness, and that's horrible. The horrible, thing to go through, and I know they're suffering right alongside of us on this first day of school. But with Corey, he wasn't sick. He didn't get hit by a car. He didn't drown at the beach on a vacation. His life was ended by a monster that he looked up to, and someone that should have been preparing him for life, for sixth grade. It's unacceptable. You can't just accept that he's not here. There's no reason for it other than Chris Gregor being a complete monster. He was just horrible to Corey. And I think sometimes, if Corey were still here, would he still be getting abused by him, or would the agency DCP&P have finally stepped in and stopped it? I wonder what his life would be like if he was still here, if he would still be going through that. I can't imagine, Corey being excited to go to school, but also worried about when the next time his dad would beat him would be. Like, that had to be hell for him. I know it was. We talked about it. And, I just needed to come on here and, say exactly how I'm feeling, because I know other people are dealing with this. And I just wanted to let everyone know just how difficult it is. And, it does not get easier, at least for me, it hasn't. It's all I think about. And when certain things come up, like a first day of school, or, like I said, Halloween, different occasions, it's very hard. It's hell. And seeing all the nice pictures, everybody posting, it's just like, I know everybody's happy and, the kids are happy to go back to school, but every time I see it, it's just like a knife in my heart because, we don't have those pictures. We can't take a picture of Corey. We can't wave to him getting on the bus, and we can't wait for the bus to come and drop him off, and, for him to come running in the front door to tell us about his first day. We don't get any more of those first days. We'll never have that again. And Chris Gregor is the reason why. And, he's going to get out of prison. Chris Gregor is still breathing, eating, walking around, laughing, joking. He's still living. And Corey's not. And I need somebody to tell me why that's fair. I can't make sense of that. Why is Chris still here? He took the life of a 6-year-old child. Why is he allowed to still be alive? It doesn't make sense to me. You can't make me understand it. I wish somebody could, but I can't make sense of it. I don't agree with the sentence that he got, but there's nothing I can do about it. All I can do is sit here and hope that he gets tortured like he tortured Corey. And as far as I know, it's not happening yet in prison. I know it's probably wrong to pray for that, but I don't claim to be right. So it's just my personal opinion. He took my grandson's life, and I don't think he should be here. And I can only hope that he is suffering, a little bit like we are. I know he's not mourning the loss of Corey. He's not accepting that he did it. He's not admitting that he did it. His family's not admitting it. But deep down, I have to think that it somehow, some way, it's got to be eating at him just a little bit. And that's what I pray for. And I pray for prison justice if such a thing exists. I don't know. But, you're right, Opa's Angel. Why do we allow these people to have a second chance after taking a life, especially the life of a child? Why are they given the opportunity to still live? I think that when you harm a child, you should be taken out the same way. If you end that child's life, then yours should be ended. I mean, that's just, I don't understand why that's not fair. Why does he get a second chance? Corey doesn't. Corey didn't get to say anything. When Corey spoke, nobody heard him. Nobody listened. And, Chris Gregor is still alive. He's still free. I mean, he's in prison, but he's still free to wake up in the morning and see the sun. Maybe. I don't know if he can see outside, if he goes outside. But, Corey doesn't get to do any of that. Corey should be going to school right now with his friends. He should be laughing and joking and living life. And Chris took that away from him, but yet he's still alive. And it just does not make sense to me, and it never will. And, I'm going to keep going on here, coming on here, and I'm going to keep talking about it. I'm going to talk about other topics that are dear to me. As you guys know, I talk about addiction. I do that a lot of times on every Monday morning with Toddy One Skip on, everybody has a story to tell, but, I made this channel to mostly talk about Corey and, what happened to him, and, just to update everybody on how we're feeling and trying to live through this. And, today was one of those days. Like I said, the buses are going past my house. They're stopping just 2 houses down to pick up kids. I hear the mother, saying goodbye, the I love yous, the waving as the bus goes down the street, and it's just killing me. But, I'm not going to stay on too long. It's just something I wanted to talk about briefly. I wanted to share my feelings. I know Brianna's feeling very much the same way, but she is, she's a mom. She works full time, and she doesn't get on here and, you know, talk like I do. I think she knows that I'm going to cover the topics and I'm going to share how we're feeling. I think she has confidence knowing that I'm doing what I'm doing for my whole family, not just for myself. And like I said, I'm going to continue to do this. And sometimes I might not make a lot of sense to some of you, but you know, if you haven't dealt with it, you know, you might not understand. But you know, uh, my hope is by coming on here and sharing my feelings and what happened to Corey and what went wrong and how I think Corey could have been saved, that might help somebody else. It just might help somebody else get through the day, you know, somebody who's having a bad day. Mindy has a question. She's asking if Chris Gregor filed an appeal. He did. I don't know what the appeal is based on. I will gladly share everything, all the information as I get it. But the only thing I can tell you right now is Chris filed an appeal. His deadline to get it in was yesterday, September 2nd. I don't have any more information other than he had to have it in by yesterday. Um, I don't know what his appeal is based on. And when I do find out, I'll share that with everybody. Um, you know, I'm just hoping that his appeal is not, I don't know if you call it denied. I don't know how the appeal process is, but I just hope it's not, you know, considered and he stays right where he is. You know, Mindy, I don't know. If it's sealed, I do know that trying to look it up, I wasn't able to find anything. So any information I got was from the Attorney General's office. I don't know who's handling his appeal just yet. They haven't decided. They were kind of waiting to get it to decide if the Attorney General's office was going to handle the appeal or if the Ocean County Prosecutor's office would handle the appeal. So, you know, as soon as I get that information, I'll share it with all of you. That's kind of why I made this Can You Hear Me Now channel. I want to be able to share with you. We still have the Justice for Corey page on Facebook, but I'll be using this channel to share all the information as I can't always post right away on Justice for Corey. And, you know, this channel is mine, so I can come on here at 2 a.m. and post if I need to. So, yeah, as soon as I get more information about the appeal, I'll share it. I mean, I'll always share with you. I've always been 100% open book with all of you and with everybody. So, you know that you can come on here and you'll get the correct information. Unfortunately, you know, a lot of people will go on maybe Justice for Corey or Bree's page and steal like a post that she made, but then add their spin to it. And I hate when people do that, but it happens. I don't know why they do it. If it's a matter of them getting likes or shares, I don't know how this all works, but a lot of people will take something that Bree said and then add something to it and make it something it's not, you know, and I hate that. I hate when that happens. I wish people would just come to me or Bree and say, hey, what's going on? Or how are you feeling about this? Or, you know, but a lot of people will take a post and then make it their own. And, you know, that's kind of inconsiderate, but I guess that's how people get their likes. And I don't know. It's sad, but, yeah, Mindy, I don't know if anyone can find out if anything about the appeal. I don't know if it's public information. Me personally, trying to look it up, I hit a dead end. So I personally spoke to the Attorney General's office to get the little bit of information that I just shared with all of you. I don't know if the appeal will be made public or when. I don't know how this stuff works. This is my first time going through any of this. Um, I don't know if it's something that you can look up. Maybe you can, and I just don't know how to do it. But when I was trying, I got nowhere. So, like I said, I spoke with the Attorney General's office and got the little bit of information I got. So, yeah, I would feel like that Bree, especially, being Corey's mom, you would think that she would be contacted every step of the way with the appeal or anything, but that's just unfortunately not how the court system or the appeal process works. They don't call you and let you know, oh, by the way, we got his appeal and this is what's going. Nobody's going to call and tell you that. It's just, I've learned that you have to make the calls and hope somebody calls you back. You have to email. Yeah, that's the only way I get information is calling and emailing. Nobody's just going to reach out and tell us what's going on, and I guess that's normal. They can't, I guess they can't really coddle the families of victims. They don't have, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I guess they don't have time to do that. They can't do that with every victim of a crime, I'm assuming. And, but yeah, unfortunately, I don't believe there's any special website for us to go on to get any information. Like I said, when I tried, I hit a roadblock. I got nowhere. So, um, you know, when I get information, when I call the Attorney General, which I probably will wait until maybe next week, being that the deadline was yesterday. I'm not assuming that they've read through it. I don't know how many pages an appeal would be. I have no idea the process and how long they would have to take to get through it. So I figured I would check in with the Attorney General maybe next week and see what's going on. Probably nothing because it's probably too soon, but I will be checking in with them from time to time to get updates. And as long as I'm allowed to share it, I'll share anything that I get with all of you. Because I know a lot of you have been following and, you care about what's happening. And we appreciate that. We haven't forgotten that. I know we're not real active on Justice for Corey, but I'm trying to be active here to keep all of you, involved. And like I said, today I felt like I needed to come on here and, talk about missing Corey. On what should have been his first day of school, and it sucks. It's hard. It's not easy. It's not, it's not it's going to be a rough day thinking about it. And, again, this afternoon, the bus is coming, dropping the kids off, on my street. It's hard because Corey should be jumping off of that bus and running down the driveway to tell Bree and all of us about his day. And he's not. And, Chris is still breathing. Unfortunately, Chris has the opportunity to get out of prison in the future and possibly have another child and experience their first everything. And, we don't get that with Corey anymore. And it's not fair. And Chris shouldn't have that opportunity either. So. Edie, I don't know. I don't know if DCP&P's failure has anything to do with, Chris's sentence or anything. I don't believe that it has, I just feel like, he didn't get charged with the murder because we couldn't really say how he did it. We just know that he ended Corey's life, but we don't really know how. I have an idea. Bree has an idea. I think the prosecutors have an idea, but we could not prove murder. So I don't think his sentence or any of that had anything to do with DCPMP. I mean, I know that Corey's not alive because DCPMP didn't step in and do what they should have. So they're to blame, but ultimately Chris ended his life. Had they stepped in and done their job, you know, Corey would be here, because I would hope that Corey would have been removed from any visitation or care, regarding being with Chris. I would have hoped that DCPMP would have ended all communication with him until further investigation. That's how it should happen, or should have happened. That's how it should happen today. But unfortunately, there have been several other Coreys since Corey was unalived by his father. There have been other kids that have suffered. And so things aren't improving yet. Nothing has changed. Joe, you're right. Nothing has changed. It's still happening. You see it on the news every day. I could go through and tell you 5, 6, 7 other cases that, same thing's happening. These are families that were involved with DCPMP, CPS, whatever, everywhere they call it something different in every state, apparently. I mean, a lot of these families were already involved and they dropped the ball. These children are gone. They're no longer here. And these agencies are responsible, And I know DCPMP, they're always understaffed and overworked. And you know what? Too bad. Got to do your job. A surgeon can't be in the middle of an operation and say, I'm just exhausted. I'm done here. And leave the patient for someone else to pick up the mess. And you can't do that. And these caseworkers, I can't call them social workers, because some of them, went from working at a casino or something to being a DCPMP worker. I don't want to call them caseworkers or social workers. Some of them have no business dealing with children. They have no experience. And here we're putting them in charge of making major decisions that could be a matter of life or death for a child. And in our case, it was death. Corey died, and they could have saved him. I know I came on here to talk about Corey not being here for the first day of school, but obviously all of this goes along with that. And, I appreciate you all sitting here and letting me talk and, asking important questions and giving me your opinions, because believe it or not, even if I don't know all of you, some of your opinions, most of them, I take to heart. I consider what you're saying. And, it's just, it gives me a lot of comfort knowing that you people are here. I'm trying to read Mindy's comment. I believe all of you can see the comments, because I think I made it so they're on the screen so you can all, see them. But, Mindy is saying that they're not understaffed. Caseloads are capped, yet they have a lot of major life or death decisions, and some are just bad workers. And you're right. I think a lot of them are there for the right reason. A lot of them, I do believe, probably care. And I think a lot of these people that work there are probably, they really do their job, and they do what they're supposed to do. But then you have those that have no business being there, just like Mark, who was the person in charge of Corey's case at DCPMP. Mark failed. That I think Mark knows he failed. We don't know, exactly what happened. I know Mark had the treadmill video. We have a date that we believe Mark got that video. And we don't know what he did with it, because had he shown it to, you know, his supervisors, the prosecutor's office, somebody, I would think that they would have stepped in and Corey would have been removed from Chris's care and Corey would still be here. But see, that's the $1 million question. When did Mark get that video? And what did Mark do with it? And then after he told whomever he was supposed to report to, what did they do with it? Because apparently it didn't get to where it needed to go, and it's just, we can't do this. We can't allow this to happen. Haley, Sarah, it's funny you should say that because I was talking with, I don't remember who at the time. I talked to so many people that I've met through Justice for Corey, and we said that every classroom should have a little secret box with little pieces of paper and pens, and a child should be able to write something down like, my mommy's hurting me or my daddy or something. And the teacher should be able to go in there and read them and call the child to the side and talk to them. I mean, I don't know if that would be considered an invasion of privacy or coaching a child. I don't know. I feel like if a kid can write down their thoughts and feel safe doing that and put it in the little secret box and the teacher could read it, wouldn't that be something that then, the school nurse or social worker in the school or counselors could be alerted and, something could be done? I mean, wouldn't that be a wonderful thing if we could do that in the school system? I had the same conversation with somebody about this little box in every classroom, and the kid could just quietly write the note and stick it in there. And, I think that could save a life. It could open up a case that maybe wasn't known about. The kid had nobody to tell, nobody saw the signs. So it would be great if the child could write it down and, alert somebody. But I don't know if that can happen. It should happen. I thought about it, but then my mind is all over the place and I never know how to get these things, to happen. Like, do I call the school and ask if they can have such a thing in a classroom or in the nurse's office or somewhere that a kid could put it in the secret box? But I haven't done that. And, sometimes because I'm Corey's grandma, I feel like a lot of people know this story and some people kind of, they don't want to, I don't know. I feel like they don't want to open that door with me and allow me to incorporate something into the schools, or I don't know why. I don't know what the issue is, but I don't feel like the school system would be receptive to my idea of the box. But it's a thought that has crossed my mind, and I did have this conversation with, I don't remember who. It may have been Mindy even. I don't know, but. I just, there are so many things that I feel like we can do to save our children. And one really big issue with us, with Corey's case, was when Bree had Corey at the hospital the night before he was murdered by Chris. There wasn't a child abuse expert there. He was gone, or she was gone for the day, and that's unacceptable. Child abuse doesn't happen Monday through Friday 9 to 5. That child abuse expert needs to be there. Somebody needs to be on call in the hospital 24/7. You don't go home at 5 o'clock on Friday and return at 9 o'clock Monday morning and just assume there was no abuse after those hours. That's bullshit. If that expert would have been available that night, I would think that Corey wouldn't have been made to go back home to Chris. And that's an issue that has to change. I don't know if all of you know, we're trying to get a law passed. We're hoping that it will be called Corey's Law. We don't know yet. We've presented it to our state senator. It's currently a bill right now, if I'm correct. I don't know the process, but I believe it's been it's being looked into and looked at. And of course, they will fine tune it. It will be some of the things I believe that we presented to them that we feel should be in Corey's law. I know the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office is also a part of working with, this, making this law. Um, I just hope they will allow it to be called Corey's Law. And a lot of the things that we thought should be in the law were having the expert on call 24/7, interviewing a child separate from the person suspected of abusing them. Because in Corey's case, um, we saw the pictures that the DCPMP worker had taken during one of the calls, and in the picture of the bruises, Chris is holding Corey. He's holding him in his arms, and to me that was just so bizarre that Chris is holding him so they can document these injuries. He shouldn't have been in the room, and Corey should have been questioned alone. And that's where I feel law enforcement needs to get some better training, because the Barnegat Police Department, when they went out to do a welfare check, they talked to Corey with Chris in the room. They just looked at him and said, "Oh, they look like they have a good relationship. Nothing wrong here." We can't have that. We have to do better. To me, my personal opinion, and I believe we put this kind of, not the same exact wording as I'm saying it right now, but in what we propose to be Corey's Law, we feel that if law enforcement is called to do a welfare check and the police are there and there's visible bruising, DCPMP should be called, and an officer should have to stay. And I know police are busy, other calls, but I feel someone should have to stay with that child until DCPMP shows up on scene. And I believe, the prosecutor's office, Ocean County Prosecutor's Office, came up with this thought that there should maybe be like a mobile response, unit. Just like, I don't know if a lot of you are familiar, and I don't know what county a lot of you live in, but here, like in Middlesex County, we have what they call mobile response. And it's almost like calling 911, but it's for like a mental health emergency. And they come out with professionals and they evaluate the situation and determine should someone be taken somewhere for help. And I believe the prosecutor kind of put something like that in what we're hoping will be Corey's Law. There should be a mobile response unit that could have been dispatched when Barnegat police went to Chris's house and did the welfare check and they saw the bruises. Mobile response could have come out and handled that. And I would like to think that if we had that in place, Corey would be here today. And I mean, there are so many things that went wrong in Corey's case. And the reason I'm so vocal and I come on here and I talk and I talk and I talk is because I need people to be educated. You people need to know what went wrong in our case so it doesn't happen to you or someone I mean, we think that we make the right calls to the right agencies, we do the right thing, and we think they're going to do the right thing. And a lot of times they don't. Oh, hi, Carrie Ann. I'm glad you got on for a minute. I'm so happy to see you. And I bet you're happy the kids went to school. I'm sure everybody's glad that their kids are out of the house. Sure, it was a long summer. Everybody can clean in peace now, right? Or at least put your feet up and have coffee. I wish we had that. I wish Corey was here. It sucks, but I'm going to keep coming on. I'm going to keep talking. And, if one person gets something from what I'm saying, then that's all that matters. If we could save one person, we help one person, then I feel like I did something. And, Corey was one of those kids that wanted to help everybody and do the right thing. And I'd like to think that, by what we're doing, we're carrying on, his, what would be, Corey's legacy. He was a helper, a do-gooder, He was just loving and caring, and he was everything that Chris Gregor is not. And Chris was jealous of that. Corey was so special and so loved, and Chris didn't like that because he didn't get that love and respect from Brianna that Corey got. And he was very jealous of it. And it's really sick to say that, but he was very jealous of Corey and Bree's relationship. And, that's part of the reason why I think he abused Corey. It's sick, but that's my belief. But I'm going to end this now. I appreciate all of you checking it out. I hope people watch later. I'm always here if anybody is going through anything. I don't claim to know the laws. I did learn a lot in the last 4 years. I can tell you that, being in court so often. I can't give legal advice, but I can listen. I can tell you what happened in Corey's case and what went wrong, and maybe guide you in a different direction. If anybody ever needs me, my email is my first name, Rebecca, my last name, Michelo3@gmail.com. You can reach out. You can reach out on here. I do answer everybody that emails me. I do. And, we're here to help. We're going to do whatever we can to keep Corey's memory alive and to help other people not go through what we're going through. I don't want anybody to be sitting here on the first day of school mourning the loss of a child that should be here like we are. So thanks, everybody. And thank you for your support. Have a good day, everyone.